Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Heavy Metallurgy Album Club. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Marty. How's it going? South of me here, south of heaven, is the Silver Vortex himself. What's up, Jim?
Hails all. Not much. Made it back to the land of hurricanes and warm Januaries safely. So, but we definitely enjoyed our time in Michigan. We were all kind of sad to leave, especially Jess. It's like she didn't barely spoke to me until we got to the airport.
Oh, oh no.
It's all good. It's all good. No
Well, awesome. What have you been spinning? I know it's been a whirlwind week, but something's probably on your player.
Really, I've just been still listening to, the items that, for end of year, the Colostrum, still really, really dig this. I'm probably going to wind up getting this one on vinyl. The CD, I just love this record so much. Definitely one of my favorite death metal albums of the year. More of this Dot there's so much depth to this. Like, it's going to take me a long time to unpack it all, and I'm
good stuff.
Grateful for that. I've also been checking out the new Afterbirth, which I totally missed the boat on.
Sorry,
I don't own it yet, but I really liked Four Dimensional Flesh, and so this one's right up there with it. So yeah. If I had heard that before, I think it probably would have made it onto my top 15. But so.
All right. Well, good to see you. Glad you made it back. Safe trip. We had a great time seeing you as always. And TJ, what's going on? How's it going?
Oh, under renovation. I just have to point out, I think it's time for Kellen to rethink his tag. And instead of killing for company, it ought to be killing for fucking excuses to not show up to the show. And anyway, so I've been listening to I've been going, I added a bunch of stuff from the picks, from the best of stream. And I've been, I don't have them yet, but where'd it go? The Lux Morte, Reverence to Paroxysm. I think that was one of Simon's. Really digging that a lot. It's like Doomy or Cathedalist kind of, but kind of in that's what it reminds me of anyway. And then I've been listening to the one that Alan brought in. Was it the Moonlight Sorcery? I think that was one of yours, Alan. Yeah, the Horn Lord of the Thorn, whatever.
That one, yes.
I've been getting in on that one. I'm basically, that's kind of what I've been going through that, and then I've been listening to because of this pick today. I was listening to Forbidden Evil by Forbidden.
Good.
Not my. I like Twisted into Form better.
I like them. They're both great.
They are. I just
Twisted is better though. I agree.
Yeah, it's there's just but that's for another time. But yeah, I've been listening because of the crossover with those bands and the release at the same time and stuff. So anyway, but yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing.
All right, Alan, thanks for filling in tonight. Good to see you again.
Yeah, glad I could jump in since Kellen was unavailable. Thanks for the invite. Good to be back. Happy New Year, everybody. Only 355 days left until Christmas. Chop, chop.
Count them down.
And a bunch of new year-end lists.
That's right. Got to start putting it together already. It's going to take a while.
So what's been going on? You got something you've been spinning?
I do. As folks probably know, I've been working through the CD shelves and the vinyl racks, trying to thin stuff out a little bit, circling back to some things that I'd either kind of forgotten about or didn't click the first time I played them, trying to figure out if I want to keep them, trade them, put them in VCLT boxes. One of them that I played and ended up liking, I just kind of forgot about it, was this one. It's a band called Significant Point. Weird name. Yes.
I kind of like the cover.
The cover's kind of cool. Yeah. It's called Into the Storm. The band name will make sense when you realize that it's a Japanese speed metal band. Yes. Yeah, exactly. All of a sudden it starts to make some sense. So yes, you got like, sort of, big kaiju attack here.
Yeah. I see the Godzilla thing.
Yep.
Whatever, the Griffin from Hell.
Yep, some kind of giant, kaiju type Pacific Rim thing going on, and a bunch of little guys down here. They're at least giving it a shot. I don't think those are going to be very effective against that thing, but yeah. Regardless, it's Japanese speed metal. It's very fun. Listen, it's very fast. The vocals and lyrics are a little quirky, as such things tend to be. But yeah, this actually is a very fun listen. It will go right back onto the shelf once I'm done playing it a few more times. If I've got one minor nitpick about it, at 10 songs, and the fact that it is kind of a one-trick pony as a speed, by the time you get to the ninth song or so, you're kind of like, this could be done now, and I'd be happy. I've kind of run this race, but yeah, pretty fun album by fun band. Haven't heard him mentioned yet. This was Dying Victims production release from a few years ago. So if you happen to see it on any of these kind of end of year blowout clearance sales, and you're wondering what the heck that band's about, Japanese speed metal, a fun listen for sure.
Awesome. Well, it's good to see everybody again. Alan and I, we threw our hat in the ring for the Metal Tag on Monday, and thanks for the people that are already starting to give it a little bit of love, some legs and all that good stuff. It was a fun topic for sure. Good way to get the rust off and get things rolling for 2024. And for myself, what's been spinning, I'm doing a big reset. And my reset is Kiss. I ended up cleaning out my wife's book room the other day, and I listened to these 3 records. First Kiss, Dress to Kill, Love Gun. All these are fun classics, all from my youth and very nostalgic. And every single note on here is DNA. It's just weird listening to these things. And it's just, now I think the Kiss marathon's probably impending. We'll see. But yeah, that's what's been going on. But today we are here to discuss this record, Vio-lence, Eternal Nightmare. And I gotta say, this is the one time I may have ever shown this, I don't know, but this is the only time I've ever found something at Goodwill, and this was decades ago. I walk in and amongst the Pat Boone and Herb Alpert and religious Christmas records, there's this thing sitting there. I'm like, what's that? For 25 cents. It was a WNMC radio promo for Vio-lence, Eternal Nightmare, and Phobophilia, 2-song.
That was the I've been racking my brain because I heard that before I heard the record, and I don't remember. I can't think how it was because I just knew there was a 2-song thing.
Yep.
And it was like they were giving it away or something, and it was like it just preceded it or whatever, and then the record came out. Because that's how I knew about the band, was from that. And I couldn't remember. I was looking online before the show and stuff. Right on. I didn't know you had that.
Yeah,
cool.
This is a WNMC radio promo. It's got their taglines all over it. Of course.
Right.
But let's start off, I guess, by a little bit of history for those of you youngins that might not be familiar with Vio-lence. Vio-lence is an American thrash metal band formed in 1985 in the San Francisco Bay Area. Throughout its existence, they released demo tapes, 1 EP, and 3 studio albums. Vio-lence is best known for their association with the 1980s Bay Area thrash metal scene, and often credited as one of the leading lights of the second wave of the genre, along with Pantera, Sepultura, Sacred Reich, Dark Angel, Annihilator, and Flotsam and Jetsam, as well as their Bay Area counterparts Testament, Death Angel, and Forbidden, which Rob Flynn was also a member of in the early days. The band has also been referred to as one of the so-called Big Six of Bay Area thrash metal, alongside Exodus, Testament, Death Angel, Laz Rocket, which I don't get that, and Forbidden. Well, let's go this little chapter here. Vio-lence's most stable lineup was Phil Demmel and Rob Flynn on guitars, Dean Dell on bass, Perry Strickland on drums, and Sean Killian on vocals. This lineup recorded all 3 of the studio albums, Eternal Nightmare, Pressing the Masses, Nothing to Gain, after breaking up in 1994 and reforming for occasional live performances from 2001 to 2003. The band reunited once again in January 2019 and released the EP Let the World Burn, their first collection of new material in nearly 3 decades. In March 2022, the current lineup of Vio-lence includes Demmel and Killian, who I think Demmel has stepped down.
He has.
In addition to bassist Christian Wolbers and the replacement of Dell and guitarist Ira Black. I know the original drummer Perry Strickland has also stepped down from the band. So basically this is Sean Killian and members playing Vio-lence. But yeah, let's get started with this one. First impression, Alan.
All right, first impression. Well, I found this album when I was in high school on a used cassette at a flea market. And we're not talking like one of the nice, indoor mall kind of flea markets. We're talking like 6:30 a.m. on a Monday morning in an abandoned drive-in movie theater flea market.
Sounds like a winner to me.
We went every week. It was fabulous.
Right on.
Rarely found any music though. Mostly, all you found were abandoned dogs and small children's, digging through trash bins for food. But every now and then you could find something interesting. And this particular Monday morning, someone had a stack of very random cassettes. Some were metal, some were not metal. I bought several things from them. One of them was this particular album. I had never heard of the band, had never seen it before. You could tell right away it was a metal album, and it was like 50 cents, so sold. First impression looking at it was just like, that's kind of a creepy cover, with the kid falling into the mouth. I'm like, well, it certainly does convey the sense of Eternal Nightmare. Put it on in the Walkman as soon as I got a chance. It's like, okay, right away you hear this is really good thrash metal. And wow, that vocalist.
Right.
First impression was, I'm not sure I'm going to get over those vocals. Spoiler alert, I did. But yeah, Sean's voice can be a huge barrier to folks. And it did throw me for a loop the first time I heard him on this. So that was my first encounter and impression of Eternal Nightmare.
All right, TJ, your first impression.
Yeah, so like I was saying, I heard this. I was like 16 when this came out, and the first time I heard it, I was back when I was still hanging around with. Well, this for the audience, this means nothing for Marty. Marty and I briefly back in high school shared a stint in a band. He was the singer, and yeah, and
the Whisperer.
Yeah, it was. He came once for a practice, and they ran through. We didn't have a drummer, and anyway, it's a long for another time. Anyway, I was still hanging around with Dan, and at that point, Dennis Lyhue was our bass player in the band, and we discovered. I think it was Dan that actually got the EP or whatever, and back then, the vocal. I remember almost being like enamored with the way he sang at the time as a kid. And I was, the record is, I was completely blown away by it. At 16, this stuff is just like vicious and, stellar. And, the leads on it were great, and coming back to, and I haven't listened to this in a while, and I, coming back to it now, and I can easily say I haven't listened to this record in a couple of years. And I listened to it, and I still love this record, but I'm way more offended by Sean's vocals now. I like it just jumps out at me more now, but I don't know how to, it's like I can listen to this record front to back, and I listened to it a bunch of times since Jim picked it, and I'm kind of disappointed that I don't have it back in my collection again. I will probably eventually, it will return to the shelf at some point. And the last thing, when they put that new record out, I listened, I checked that out, and I was like, this is pretty good. I haven't really dug into it, to have a real opinion on it, but the couple tracks I listened to were really solid, but I listen to it now, and it's just like this kind of elephant in the room, with this record, with his voice, and even in the comments, it's already coming up. It's like his voice, this is that, and it's, I don't know, there's just an endearing quality to it from the time, when I think back, because I can still remember sitting and listening to this for the first time, 16 years old, and then two guys I was in the band with were old enough to buy alcohol, so we're sitting on a picnic table in the bass player's backyard, and he lived with his parents, and, and he's in his mid-20s, and we're sitting out there getting ripped, drinking Schlitz and listening to this record, just like, oh man, when we get a drummer, we're just gonna, we're gonna be so good.
Not with this singer at the time.
Well, it was by that time, I think we had moved past you and Scott, and we're on to our own affairs at that point. But I mean, I love this record. I do. And, but it's, now that I'm sitting here kind of being a little bit more critical about it, I'm thinking, God, it's like, certain, I mean, well, obviously we'll get into it, but it's like, it's doing weird things to my head about it now, because it's like I've never really stopped to really think about it. Where, like, say, like Confessor's first record, when I first heard it, because I used to see this, what's this nuts from used to wear a shirt in some of the band photos I seen him, Paradise Lost. That's the first time I ever heard of it. Yeah, that was the first time I ever heard of that band. And he had this, and they finally put their first record out, and I'd never heard it. And then he starts singing, and you're just like, what in the hell is going on right now? What is this? And I remember my friends were in the car, and we went and got it in the mall. I'm like, I was so stoked. And he starts singing, and they're laughing at me like, ha ha, you bought this crap. And I'm like, I don't know, dude. You listen to it, and and then I fall in love with it, but it's still had that. I was more like that. Was harder for me at the time than Sean's voice was, but then here I am now, 50 years old and it's like I have this. It's affecting me weird for some reason, but my opinion. I don't know. I'm rambling on, and I'm lost over my thoughts here, but anyway, I love this record, and so we'll move into it. I'm done.
We'll finish with you, Jim. For me, well, it came out in 88, year before I graduated high school. I got it around then. With everybody, the vocals were the big thing for me, but the music was so good and right in line with what I was way into. It was a quick turnaround for me to start to like the vocals, especially on Oppressing the Masses, the follow-up album. This one really blew me away. The music was way more intricate. I don't know, there's something about this, a little more socially and politically charged lyrics. Love this record. I love both of these records, but for a debut record, man, what a scorcher. It just blasting, for the time it felt so fast, and the intricate palm muted riffs, and it just Rob Flynn and Phil Demmel are so Loctite in the rhythms. It's just amazing how precise they were. But yeah, this is one that I loved early on, and I still love it. It's been a lot of fun jamming it this week for sure. Jim, what are your thoughts?
I loved Sean Killing's vocals from the start. It's good. I think that they are absolutely critical to this record. He's utterly unique. We don't know what to call his vocals. We don't, I think Frost said, but I've always felt that way too. He's not really singing. He's not really screaming. He's not really, yelling. He's just being Sean.
Kind of a crossover vibe.
Yeah. I mean, I've never been able to put my finger on it, and I think that is a testament to how cool it is. He just did what he wanted to do, and it works. And I mean, from the first time I heard, calling, you come a crawling, my life is smiling, eternally, I'll roll your mind. I mean, I was just like, dude, that is awesome. And as awesome as the riffs were and everything else, like for me, like his, rapid fire, bile-fueled spitting delivery, just drew me in immediately on every song. And same with Oppressing the Masses too. His vocals on Oppressing the Masses are amazing. I mean, it turns Vio-lence and from being like a thrash band into something just way really 10 times more savage, in my opinion. There's just nothing but an acidic, flame fueled, delivery coming out of there that really adds power to this song, and the whole album as a whole. So I loved it immediately. When I first got this, it was a dub from I don't remember who I got it from, and but I'd seen the cover in Thrash Metal magazine. I knew I was going to like it, and I did. When I wasn't sure what to expect, like the very first riff in Eternal Nightmares, and I was like, okay, well that riff is just all right, that's not anything special. But then they started speeding it up, and then it just gets faster and faster and faster. And then, Sean goes in and the rest is history. So yeah, this album absolutely was love at first sight for me. I've always loved it ever since. And I love Oppressing the Masses too. The albums, the stuff that came after, wasn't a fan of, but I still really, really love both of these records. And, been looking forward to the opportunity to discuss this, what I consider to be, one of the greatest thrash metals of all time. It's just pure power from start to finish. And if half the thrash albums were half as good as this one, then, there'd be even more of it in my collection. So
right on. You have a topic for us?
I do. So one of the interesting things about Vio-lence is, the drumming. Peter Strickland is an incredible drummer.
Perry Strickland.
Perry Strickland.
Yeah,
Sorry,
you're close.
I even have it written Perry right here in front of my face, and I still said Peter. I'm getting old. Perry is absolutely a monster with his hands. And the percussive attack of Vio-lence is largely due to his fills work and snare work and stuff like that. There actually is very little double bass in his playing on this record. So, my kind of question is, do you think that, with a focus on percussive fills and snare attack as it is on this album, for an extreme metal band of today, would that be an acceptable, filling of the void, where there is less double bass? Do you feel like if Vio-lence had come out today in terms of the drumming, would like the lack of double bass, have diminished? Would it diminish its impact in a modern extreme metal band now? Or would his percussive attack with his hands, because it's all his fills and stuff to deliver the power, would that still be, as punishing in a band of today?
TJ.
Well, I mean, the question's a little loaded because it's like if a band like this came out today, I don't know that, other than the diehard thrash people, anybody would, they'd be, there's so many bands that are kind of doing it now and following in the footsteps, and they're good. There's so many good bands, would they get the same kind of attention, but that's, I guess, a different kind of off the issue a little bit, but I don't know. I mean, when it's good, it's good. And when you look at the way they structure their songs, I mean, there's so much speed here. And then when they do break it down, they don't really get below the mid pace anyway. It's either thrash attack all the way, or they kind of just bring it down just enough to kind of bring a little bit of a groove, a little bit of a vibe. The double bass, there wasn't really anything going there. More modern drummers, where the double bass was becoming, you move into the 90s and the double bass and the blast beats and that stuff really start becoming more prevalent in the music. And, then, some of these guys would have been slapping the double bass, 250 beats, BPM in there and whatever else. He didn't need it. These songs carried, with just the sheer straightforward attack and the riff writing in this, Flynn and Demmel, those guys are they write monster riffs. It's just, it just doesn't, I don't think it wouldn't, he delivers. And if it were a modern band that doing, written as well as this is, it'd be right there on that list of these other, these modern vintage thrash bands that are, bringing the goods, I'm sure we can all probably pick one or another on some level and be like, oh, I heard this band and this one, whatever. So I think so. I think, I definitely think as long as they're writing, at this level, and then for a debut for these, I mean, my God, so yeah, I think it certainly would work.
Alan.
Yeah, I think it would work okay too. People have become pretty appreciative of drum skills as time have gone by. People look at bands like Mastodon and stuff where the drums are very prominent in a lot of the music, and people enjoy that. They really get into it. There is always going to be a crowd that wants to focus simply on speed and just wants to count BPMs and just wants to freak out over whether Lorna Shore or Cattle Decapitation can play faster or whatever. Yeah, and that's okay. But no, I think it's okay for drummers to really focus more on the fills, the showy kind of stuff, and they can still get their point across as long as it fits the music, like TJ said. As long as the music's good and the drums are working with it. That's quite all right. I don't think it would be any kind of detraction to a modern band. If anything, I think people might appreciate it more today than they did, in the late 80s, where again, sometimes the drums just tended to get buried in the mix. And, that was just, the drummer was the guy who hung out with the three musicians on stage. Nowadays it's almost the opposite. The drummer is the guy leading the other musicians on the stage. So that's my take on it.
All right. Well, for me, you got to look at it this way. I think you look at the technicality and talent of drummers in 1988. Yeah, there's some awesome drummers. Lombardo, Hoagland, bunches of them. But really, truly amazing drummers were kind of an elite circle, a clique. And Perry Strickland was one of those guys. And even on this record, the drumming gets even more, the fills get bigger, more crazy, really, really great. And nowadays it seems like the talent of everybody is kind of raised exponentially. Everybody's kind of a pretty damn good drummer, but throw, a young Perry Strickland coming out fresh in the scene now. Yeah, he can hang. He can completely hang. The fact that there's not many there's some like triplets here and there, whatever, but I don't miss that lack of double bass. And that, to me, that kick snare thing just kind of puts a little bit more punk influence in it for me, which I think is really cool about this. Though Vio-lence is obviously they're not a punk band, but you can tell there's an influence there between Sean's vocal style and the drum work and some stuff here and there. Overall, some social political lyrics that enter the mix later on. I don't know if I'm answering your question, Jim, but I think it's fine without the constant double bass storm. I think Perry is mindful of his meter, and he puts the fills in the right places, and they're very explosive when they need to be. What do you think, Jim, on your own question?
I've always loved Perry's drumming, and I felt since day one that it's like absolutely utterly headbanging inducing, and like his ability to take the tempos, double time them, and this is before the age of click tracks and all that. It was done with in my eyes, just a perfection. There's like a barbaric, feeling to his fills that just make you want to thrash out. He makes the riffs sound 10 times more powerful. He makes them sound 10 times more unique, all with his hands, and it was just interesting as I was really paying attention to the drums this week, it really stuck out to me, how the double bass, like you said, just a quick little triplets here and there, and really he only does them when he's doing the fills, so it's really unlike most metal drummers. And even in 88, people were starting to turn more to rolling double bass. His kind of focus on what he was doing with his arms and hands was I won't say it was unique, but I will say that it was highly skilled and better than most, and I think that it elevates this album to a great height. And so it really kind of stuck out to me. This day and age, most extreme metal bands, it's mostly about double bass, and what's going on there. And, and I think, really dramatic, memorable fills that kind of like induce, the head that doesn't bang to bang, is more of a rarity. It's kind of like a combination of the double bass and the snare that make you want to thrash out a little bit. But here, for me, this album is really all about the fills. And so I wanted to see, does anyone else hear it that way? Or would, if it was like, pushed into the modern era, would it still be as impactful? I speak as being biased as an old thrash kid, that it would still be, but I just wanted to posit it to everyone else and see what they thought. But yeah, for me, certainly it wouldn't be diminished at all. I think, the fill work on this album still stands out to this day, and really adds to the overall attack, just assault of this band. It wouldn't be the same without it. And I think if it was all double bass and just like a little bit of fills here and there, I think it would have detracted from the power of Eternal Nightmare greatly. So I wouldn't change it at all. So.
All right. Well, let's discuss the musicality and composition of Eternal Nightmare. Alan, we'll start with you.
Sure. One thing that strikes me about the album a lot is that if I didn't know, the band, or didn't know what the album was, and you just played it for me and said, "Where is this band from?" I would guess they were an East Coast thrash band. To me, they've got some of that punky, mixture in the background that you alluded to earlier, Marty. Just the way the songs are structured. Yeah, even in Sean's vocals a little bit. To me, he's a little closer to somebody like, Bobby Blitz, with a little bit of that sneer, like y'all said earlier. He doesn't sing or anything. It's more like this kind of, rapid fire barking with this very unique voice that does kind of make you think a little bit along hardcore lines. And that was, something that was associated more with the East Coast thrash, more so than West Coast thrash. I'm speaking, in broad generalities. Not every band did that. But yeah, if you just played this and it was a complete unknown to me, I would figure, okay, that might be like, a Jersey band, New York band, somewhere in the Anthrax, Overkill kind of avenue of working. So that's one thing that stands out about it. Another big thing, of course, within the vocals, and I think it was Frosty that pointed this out in the comments earlier, it's not just that Sean's voice has this, odd, tone to it. His delivery has this very odd pacing where, he pauses in places you don't expect him to pause. And then he's going, rapid fire through lots and lots of words. Yeah, I was listening to this album earlier and kind of just glancing through the lyrics on Metal Archives, and it's like every song you have to keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. There's a ton of words packed into most of these songs, which again kind of harkens to a hardcore style. You're right, Marty. They are not a punk band. They are not a hardcore band at all. But there's some similarities. They have that same kind of looseness to their sound. Mike described it that way in the comments, and he's exactly right. It has kind of a little bit of a loose sound, like, say Overkill's Feel the Fire, another album which, does show some of the punk roots of, the thrash metal scene. So those are some of the elements I think that, does make the album stand out. Another thing is the nice interplay between Sean and, the backing gang vocals. When they use those, it's very effective because everybody, they time it very precisely in a lot of places, like the choruses for Kill on Command and stuff. Well, Sean will begin the line and then the gang vocals will finish the line. You just get lots of nice little touches like that where the band is operating very well. The guitar work is fire. Not much to say there, but yeah, it's just excellent on that. Everything, the rhythm section is very tight. We've already discussed the drumming in detail. So yeah, the sound and composition, it's definitely thrash. It sounds very 80s thrash, but it's, got its own kind of little quirks, which all work together very nicely here. And it's also a very focused album. We were talking in the dugout before we started. It's only 35 minutes, and there's nothing that really veers off track at all. There's no ballad like a Testament album. There's no instrumental like a Metallica album. There's no song that was, clearly meant to be the Headbangers Ball quote unquote single on the album.
You wouldn't get that till the next album. Yeah.
Right. But on this album, you don't. This album, everything is very straightforward. Each song still has its own personality and identity, but they're not, veering all over the place trying to like check these boxes. They're like, no, we're going to do this one thing. We're going to do it with our own flavor, and we're going to do it very, very well. And they succeeded. So that would be my overall take on this one.
TJ.
Yeah, so I totally agree. There is definitely a punkiness to some of the delivery with the riff writing and stuff. There is definitely that kind of that sneering kind of, to borrow, loose quality, but at the same time, the riffs are very vicious. They're very pummeling. They deliver. They're firing on all cylinders all the time. The songs are very smartly put together. They're very concise. There's no wasted space. And at 35 minutes, the album still feels like, you don't feel gypped at the end of it. It doesn't zing by so fast. Like you really feel like you got something for that time, and you're not bored of it or no. It's just kind of perfect. The songs don't feel too short or too long or anything. Everything's just really well crafted. Beyond that, I mean, and like his singing, it's like the more I thought about it, it's like he sings like a guitar player that sings. He follows the riff lines a lot. He follows the bars in the song a lot, and then it's almost like he'd never been in a band before. Because I remember reading some stuff, and he'd never really, like he was talking about how he used to go out into the literal shed behind his house with a little PV amp and a microphone and sing to Slayer records and stuff. And he developed this all organically, the way he delivers things. And that speed, it just strikes me as somebody who'd never really tried to develop cadences and arrangements for vocals. And he had all this stuff he wanted to say. And rather than try to trim it out or make it fit, better, he just, I guess I just got to be faster. I guess I just got to follow the line more. And then he would just come up, these weird breaks in his vocal lines to get the whole, how he would like, what the hell is that? Don't you point your finger, and the song, and it's just like, what a weird way to do it. But the thing, it adds so much. It's the character, because there is a maniacal viciousness to the way he delivers those lyrics, the way he sings. And it's like, I sit and listen to it now, and I'm picking, like, I'm like, it's kind of forced. It's, there's obviously some immaturity on his end as a singer, but there's still this quality to it that lends itself to the character of what this band, how that, what it is, and on this record, it does, it has for lack, it is kind of violent the way he brings it across, and it just works. And like I said, at the time, it just never, to me, as a kid hearing this, it just I loved it then. Being now for the show, sitting here thinking about it, and it's just like, God, listen to how he's doing this. How and he's up there, and he's just finding these weird notes and these weird beats in the song to deliver all these words.
He tries to sing. There are like these weird things where he's trying, but it comes off more as like crossover. Totally. Comes over.
Yeah, there are moments where he's trying, and you can tell he's trying to figure it out, and he put it in, and he got all the words in there, and he figured it all out, and everybody liked it, and we went with it. And I think it really, I mean, he's definitely, he definitely, it just gives this record. It is what without that. I mean, because I was thinking about it earlier, and I'm like, you think about like Russ from Forbidden, and and these guys, we'll get into, it's like
Russ struck me as more of a classically, more of
he
a
knew,
heavy metal singer.
He knew how to get in there
Yeah.
and bring, to make words soar with the music and find the spots and build those cadences.
Mm-hmm.
And I listened to this record and I think, God, it would be kind of cool for them to have had that with this, but then it would not be this record. It would not be this band at this point. It would be such a different thing. And I don't know if it would even, it's like, you got Forbidden, they're already doing what they're doing at the time. And so it's like, I don't know, I wouldn't, it would be cool to hear, but at the same time, it's not the record I want. We're listening to this, fell in love with this. It's interesting to think about because, again, I'm sitting here kind of nitpicking things and whatever, my criticisms just are kind of like observations more than anything. Cause like I say, I wouldn't want this record to be any other way than it is, but at the same time, it's still kind of the elephant in the room because of the way he does sing, so, but that being said, I mean, there's not much more, the musicianship on this is just top notch. And for a debut, I mean, they were on a major. This was like one of MCA's little offshoot records, I was labels. I was actually trying to find see if anybody had like a budget for them on this, because we're going to get into production and stuff. And obviously, I mean, it's like so perfect on this, but I was just kind of curious.
It's funny they left that. The next album, they were on Megaforce and Atlantic.
Yeah. And
Megaforce usually indicates what? Well, East Coast, but not necessarily Metallica.
Right. Right. Sure. So, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting to talk about and think about. And it's like, yeah, just kind of break down the way Sean did things. But at the end of the day, Eternal Nightmare, this record, I mean, this just, it's kind of, it's mandatory, man. I mean, what else can you really say?
Jim.
Yeah, first of all, TJ, I completely agree with everything you said. I'll take it a different direction because I think you covered it really well on Sean. Another thing, this album wouldn't be the same without is it's the riffs, man. The riffs come at you quickly, and even though they return to them, you get a lot of like a kind of a common song structure, couple verses, couple choruses. They always tweak the riffs slightly, from verse to verse. There's always like a little bit of a flourish there where they'll add them in, and they'll add a couple notes here and there, and they'll just like, they're very subtle changes in there that don't change the timing of the riff at all or the flow of the riff at all. But just enough forethought, as a musician to encourage the listener, like, hey, we've got even more in our back pocket here to deliver, pay attention to what's going on. They'll, add a little bit of a run, add an extra, open a chord where they had it closed on the previous verse, things like that. There's all these little ideas that are peppered throughout, each of these super cool, songs, and just the way that the riffs are played. I mean, you can feel that there's just a ferocity in, the way they're actually attacking the guitar. This isn't somebody sitting on the edge of a bed, just kind of like lightly touching the strings, playing some 6 gauge or whatever. These guys are just really beating the hell out of these things. I mean, you can just feel it, and
freaking out live too, headbanging and surfing.
If you've seen them live or seen any of their videos, I mean, these guys gave it 1,000% on, and that was one of the reasons they went, straight from, the stage to being signed to an MCA offshoot, was because, they were a huge draw because they were incredibly entertaining and great musicians to boot. So yeah, man, the riffs here are awesome. Being a thrash kid, I had to watch myself. I kind of, stole a riff off of, Bodies on Bodies in one of my songs. I was like, oh, wait a minute, that sounds a little bit like that.
It happens. It happens.
It happens.
Because and even that riff, on Bodies on Bodies, it sounds real simple. It's like open chord, two palm mutes, open chord, but they add a little hesitation in it. It's like na na da 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 na da da da. It's like it's not quite like just straightforward. If you're listening to it and you're trying to play along with it, they let that second open chord like hang a little longer, and yeah, man, it's so minor. It's just like an extra half a second. But I'm telling you, it's those little flourishes like that differentiate them from every other thrash band that was going on at the time. They always added in just something there where they tweaked it and made it their own. And in the midst of all that, like just riff insanity coming at you 100 miles an hour. I mean, there's no let up. There's no ballads on this song. There's no on this album. There's no time to chill out. Every song's coming at you. It's those little tweaks that add to the overall effect that this album gives. And so, musicality and composition, what I'm saying is like, for you to even have that idea where I'm going to just add a little, play this one note an extra second, or I'm going to do a quick little run here before the next verse starts, that is the difference in between, a good musician and a great musician. And, and these guys at this level, even in their youth, they were great musicians, and I can still listen to this record all these years later, and still like kind of marvel at like, the thought that went into, not just putting these riffs in the songs, but developing them throughout the song as the song progresses, as they return to the riffs, like the riffs grow a little bit. I mean, that just takes a lot of like, care and concern about what you're putting out. And to me, that's as good as it gets. So.
One thing I think that also heavily contributes to the crossover / punk / hardcore influence is, Mike said that he didn't know if Dean Dell even played on here. I haven't found anything saying that he didn't, but I didn't look at the insert either. But the bass tone, Dean Dell, I'm going to say it's him because that's the way he's listed as the bass player. Dean Dell's bass tone, very plunky, very crossover. Like someone mentioned DRI, sound reminds him of DRI. They're that plunky, clean, but it's kind of a fat, kind of slightly distorted plunk to it. I love how it cuts through the mix, and it gives that extra punk vibe. And the thing that steers this away from the crossover classification is Rob and Phil's guitar work. It is so, like I said, lock tight. How tight those guitars are. You can't listen to it on headphones loud. It just sounds like a one solid frontal attack. You can't hear deviation in the playing. It's amazing how tight they were. Really, really great stuff. Something else I was going to say here too regarding that, and I can't remember right now. I don't know, but the songwriting, the composition, the fact that they get in, they get out, and they do so. It's largely fast, but there's also like phobophobia. There's some moshy stuff in here too. The first half of the album to me is great. I mean, the whole album is great, but I like the second half. After track 4 onward is where it really picks up steam and just absolutely devastates everything in its path. But the songwriting is just top notch. I really love how they built the songs. And like Jim said, the little extra flourishes they would put on before a change in a riff. It's like they threw everything and the kitchen sink into this. Like, okay, this is our debut album. We're going to go out there. We're going to cleave heads. And, they're sharing stages with, Forbidden, which, Rob was in that band for a minute, Exodus, and all the Barrier bands. And I know one thing I was going to say. As we were talking about this record and I listened to it this week, there's a lot of similarities between this band and Holy Terror. I don't know if any of you guys are into Holy Terror at all. Alan, I know you heard. I know Jim has heard. TJ, I don't know so much if you have or not.
I've listened to them, but it's not a thing they're not a thing.
Keith
really.
Dean, I think, was a more melodious singer. Rest in peace, Keith Dean. But he had the same kind of cram a whole bunch of words in, and they had a very similar razor sharp riffing style. I think Holy Terror steered a little bit more into traditional metal side than crossover, but and getting back to Sean Killian, youthful passion and exuberance really jumps out on this record. But I listened to some of these riffs that he's singing over. It's kind of a tough job. I mean, there's a lot going on in the music. There's parts where it's just palm muted, crunching on the E or E flat or whatever the hell they're tuned to. But the riffs are super. I mean, this is, if you took Sean out of the equation and this was a largely instrumental record, it would work. I think the songs and the transitions are so interesting that the singer is kind of an afterthought here. The music stood on its own without the vocalist, but he kind of just came in, and I think follow the riff was kind of what he had to do, because he's trying to throw some melodic flourishes here and there where there might not have been room for one, and it's awkward, but somehow works out. It works out remarkably well, and you could tell the band is incredibly tight, practiced, and they wrote some killer freaking songs here. Let's talk about the production. Alan. Oh, I got you typing. Sorry.
That's okay. But yeah, one thing that stands out production-wise on this album, well, I guess there's two things. First off, everything is pretty well balanced. You can hear all the instruments, no problem. Nothing got completely buried, and things like way too far out front. The other thing, and I think something that really helps the album go to that next level, is the fact that the album has a very clean, bright production to it.
Yep.
And it gives the music this extra energy, which is perfect for the music on this thing, as we've been alluding to. This is, an album to thrash to. This is an album to mosh to. And if it had kind of a denser production, or, kind of a, atmosphere layers added, it would probably siphon off some of that energy and wouldn't have the same impact. But yeah, the fact that this has, a very, clear, kind of bright production to it, it helps you hear everything, and it really gives it that extra shot of adrenaline, which is perfectly in sync with what you want out of this band. So yeah, I think the production works for the album very, very well. And just to shoehorn something in here real quick, for folks that really enjoy bands like Vio-lence in this topic, I do want to give a shout out to Metal Mickey and his colleagues over at Contact and Blood. Late last year, they did an excellent live stream, and it was a fun one where they kind of had classic thrash albums competing against each other head to head, and letting people in the chat kind of vote and battle it out. I was amazed at how many albums got decimated when they were paired up against Eternal Nightmare. It was a really fun show. I don't remember the exact episode number, but definitely look that up on YouTube. If you were a fan of this album, you will be pleased to see how many they just leave the pit in shreds when they got lined up against Eternal Nightmare. So cheers to Metal Mickey and the guys at Contact and Blood. Awesome dudes over there for sure. Cool show. Yes. They should do them more often, but I know it's hard to get their schedules to line up. The planets don't align so much over there, I guess, in England. but when they do, it's really fun. It's really good stuff. Yeah, sorry, but I didn't want to forget that later on. So absolutely, shout out to them. But yeah, great production, and I'll hand it off to the next person. TJ.
Yeah, so I was curious about a few things because I didn't remember because Flynn wrote 3 songs off of Forbidden's first record, and I was poking around and I was curious about who produced this album. They were on a bigger label. Let me see if I can see that. Oh, I already looked. I've got it all here, so I'm way ahead of you. Okay, so I found this to be pretty interesting actually. So the guy's name is John Cunibierti. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I don't know. And this guy used to play drums for Eddie Money in his early band in the 70s. To paradise. Apparently Eddie had a backing band called the Rockets in the 70s. And so he played drums for them. And then he produced this record for them, and he also produced Forbidden's first record, Forbidden Evil. And he also did Zentrix's first record, Shattered Existence. Yeah, and I think that's about the extent of it. But I thought it was kind of interesting, and this guy has actually done damn near the bulk of Joe Satriani's catalog.
And Joe
including-
Satriani was like the guitar coach or guitar teacher for Larry Lalonde from Possessed,
Yeah.
Kirk Hammett, a bunch of those various dudes. Yeah.
Yep. And he actually this Kunibierti guy, he actually did Surfing with the Alien, which was a Grammy nominated record. And I just thought that was rather interesting because the production on this is just for this kind of band, it's just absolutely stellar.
You couldn't ask for anything more, really.
Oh my! And 88, I mean, this is just absolutely it's top tier production for this record.
Yeah,
it's just absolutely perfect. It's it pummels when it needs to. It shines. It's sharp.
The guitar tone is exceptional. Man, the guitar is so
absolutely.
sharp.
And this guy, and it's funny because this guy really not. I mean, but I guess considering you working with a high gain guy like Satriani and stuff, he had some sense about what these guys were trying to deliver sonically and to some degree. And I just it was just kind of interesting. I was looking at his website and some of the things that he's done over the course of his career, and it's pretty interesting how the guys like this end up with these bands, and you always kind of wonder, what in the hell is he thinking sitting in that room? Is he just counting dollar signs and he doesn't care? Or is he invested? But you wonder. But yeah, he's worked with Kid Rock, Red Hot Chili Peppers, on and on and on. But I mean, there's you can't really, there's nothing to critique about this production. It's so spot on. And for the time, I mean, that's why I was I was trying to find a production budget for this. If it was posted somewhere, because I would really be curious to see what he got paid for this, because he just delivered for this band on this debut. It's so stellar and it's so good. What more can you really say about it for this record? Any band would give a pinky finger for to be able to get a record sound this good.
Yeah.
Especially get it paid for. So
nothing. That all comes out of the band's asses.
Well,
what I mean. The label doesn't give money away for free.
Well, you know what I mean, though.
Yeah.
I mean, they went in and they didn't have to crack open a checkbook or whatever. I mean, obviously the band pays for it. Anybody that knows how it works. But again, they got recruited, they got signed, they got delivered to a studio, they got signed a producer. This was all done for them in a time when that's how things were done. And what band today? It's like dreams to have a production this good, and not have to fork out a bunch of money, or especially all the indie guys and at home guys and stuff. So it's great. So what else? It just the production stuff was just kind of interesting. Beyond that, yeah.
All right, Jim, production. One of the achievements I think of this album is, that, they're able to, capture a great, thrash guitar tone, back in the, this era, lots of palm muting on and crunching, but, it was usually accomplished with a scoop on the knobs in the studio of the EQ, where, all the mids were taken out and, the bass sort of disappears. And that's not the case at all with this album. There is a great, thickness of the distortion, a great crunch, but yet it's more of a high mid, and the bass is ever present. Anytime you want to pick out the bass, it's right there. Sometimes, even when you don't want, I'm not saying I'm always happy to hear it, but it's right there level with a guitar. And I absolutely love that. I think it's like a kind of a genuine sort of sound for a street 80s era thrash band like these guys were. And I love that. It kind of I'm starting to pick up what you're putting down, Marty, about the hardcore thing, and it's almost like, as now I'm hearing it, I'm hearing a much cleaner, higher mid version of dealing with its production, you know, and that is a huge compliment, you know, because I love the production on that record, but this is like a more, you know, and no dig to that album, but this is more like a kind of a refined version of that, which is a little higher mid, and everything just works, you know, the drums are right there, the fills are there, you know, the bass isn't like a slap, you know, kicky, you know, high. It's a thump, you know, but it's always present, you know, without being overbearing. You know, they went the complete opposite way of another famous '88 album from a thrash band from the Bay Area, which we won't bother mentioning. You know, their drum sound on this was the complete antithesis of that. Yet I think, you know, for my money, you know, it's superior. So, you know, and, you know, that, and then, you know, you got Sean's, you know, insane vocal over it all. Yet neither one diminishes the other. In fact, they complement each other. You know, whoever it was twisting these knobs was able to, you know, layer Sean on top of the music in such a way where he didn't outshine what was going on, and yet, you know, the riff still supported what Sean was doing. Yeah, and so, yeah, I mean, I think you're right, TJ. Whoever this guy is, you know, I think anyone would have been happy to have him, you know, behind the mixing board, because the choices that were made in the studio were right on. And I love Oppressing the Masses, the album that came after this. However, I think I kind of like the production on Eternal Nightmare a little bit better. It's a little more ferocious and raw, even though Oppressing the Masses is still great album front to back as well. But yeah, production, you know, thumbs up from me on this.
Yeah, I'm not going to go too far because you guys, you know, you mentioned dealing with it. The big difference in the bass tone between Dealing with It and Eternal Nightmare, I think Josh was a bass player in DRI. He played with a Rickenbacker, and you can tell this had the Rickenbacker, clean Rickenbacker, even though Rickenbacker has a meaty metallic tone to it. But yeah, that's the same vibe for sure. But this production, the mix, I love the mix. You can hear everything. The bass is where it belongs. The guitars are perfect. I love the guitar tone. I have zero complaints. The guitar tone's got a nice sharp edge to it. It has a good bite to it. You know, they get a little technical at times, and with two guitar players, I don't know how many times, if they just each played once or if they each doubled their guitar lines, it's perfect. There's no phasing. There's none of that. It's perfect. The guitar tone is great. Absolutely killer tone. Drums are fine. Sean, I think it all boils down to if you like Sean or not. People that say his voice is a little loud in the mix are the people that may be a little, I don't know about his vocals, but perfect. I love it. Least favorite songs. Alan.
Yeah, I think you're right, Marty. The even like when you look through reviews on Metal Archives or stuff, this album has 24 reviews. Some of them are more favorable than others. Even the folks that say they don't like the album a ton, or that, yeah, Sean's vocals really kill the deal for them, even those people are giving it like, 68, 78%. And let's face it, these are metal people. If we don't like something, we'll give it 0% or 12%.
Yeah.
We'll run it in the ground.
All or nothing.
Even the folks on Metal Archives are, giving this album respect, even when they flat out say, I can't handle Sean's voice. They're only knocking the album down maybe 25% because of that, which, is impressive and, shows that they're being reasonable. Anyway, favorites and least favorites. Let's see. I don't know, for least favorite, I'm going to say Calling in the Coroner. Not that there's anything wrong with the song. It's just the one song that never sticks. So yeah, we'll do that for least favorite. For favorite, I agree with you. I think this album goes from strength to strength as you side A to side B. So it's got to be something on side B for favorite. It's really close between Bodies on Bodies and Kill on Command, but I think I will take Kill on Command. The song's great overall, but I really like the vocal interplay at the end of that one where Sean starts each line and then the gang vocals kick in. It's like, I pulled the trigger, bloodshed. The bullet rips through your head. And then just wrapping it up with, why won't you just stand still and make my job a little easier? It's just like, just that little touch of humor added into an album that's full of, mostly, murder and, mental, insanity and, kind of, dark, typical thrash topics. But yeah, just that, one little joke there in the final line. I'll have to go with Kill on Command for my favorite.
TJ.
I don't really have any bombs on this record. Standout ones that I like probably the most, like TDS. I like the pace. His pacing on his Vox on that one are a little better on that, and a little stronger. I like Bodies on Bodies. Just the stupid simple chorus, but it's catchy. Bodies on Body. With the riff and everything, and then the opening track. That just the delivery of that, that dueling riff and it's just kind of perfect, and it delivers, pretty much everything that this record's going to be for the next, 35 minutes. So other than that, there's nothing, the whole record's, a listenable journey front to back. So, yeah.
All right, Jim.
Favorite song is the title track, man. I love Eternal Nightmare. I mean, it is just like, from the first time I heard it, I was like, holy shit, man. This song, I mean, to this day, I was trying to listen to it and work, and I was on my feet thrashing out air guitar. I just,
did you get sent to human resources again, Jim?
Well, luckily I work from home, so but yeah,
Jim's the reason they have a sign on the refrigerator in the break room that says "No air drumming allowed."
Yeah, I would be the one for sure. Absolutely. But yeah, I absolutely love the song. His vocals. And they're the ones I love to feed up most of all. I mean, it's all of it, dude. It's like down, just going and going. It's just so awesome, man. And also, calling a corner. I just love your son's distorted features as I picked him off the road. His body mangled, took 10 hours for me to sew together. I love that. Love it, dude. So awesome. But yeah, I'm with you, TJ. It's front to back. It's 35 minutes. It's get in, get out. It's all killer, no filler. Even Serial Killer, which is like the second track. There's not much to it. It's not even 3 minutes long. It's really short. It gets, it's like my silent grave. Like, it just wouldn't be the same without it, man. And every song has something to offer, even that really short one. That So yeah, but definitely, Eternal Nightmare, Calling the Corner, Bodies on Bodies, all three of those, the whole thing is essential, but those three are my faves. So.
All right. It's me. I have no. Okay. First of all, my favorite song here is Bodies on Bodies. Sharpest and fastest riff runs on the album. A complete scorcher, yet lets up on the throttle for an atypical shift in the structure. I gotta love that gang yelled chorus, and then they changed it up. The gang yelled "bodies on bodies on bodies on bodies" after it's just stupid little changes. It's like mileage in the gang yells. It's so good, so good.
Right.
Yeah, they perfected the gang yells on this
album. My least favorite, but that's not saying I don't like the song, would be Phobophobia. I mean, they introduce more of a moshable groove on this one, which does add depth to their otherwise all cannons blazing speed style. And I really love this whole album, but the first three songs are just, I'm kind of chomping at the bit waiting for the next four. The next four are just Calling the Corner, Bodies on Bodies, Kill on Command. Oh my God. So good. TDS. It's just an absolute slam dunk ending to the album. Headbanger, air guitar, love it. Judgment, final thoughts, Alan.
I think it's a really good example of a very, very high end thrash album coming out from one of the bands that's sometimes considered second tier overall, because they had a short catalog. They're all perennially placed behind the big four. They were Willis was mentioning it in the chat earlier. They were late to the Bay Area scene, even they were playing by 85, but still they were a second generation Bay Area thrash band, and that's just fact. That's not a knock on them. And they still put out one of the best albums from that very, very noteworthy scene. So that's an accomplishment in itself. It's kind of a shame they didn't have more time to put out more albums during that classic period. You got this and Oppressing the Masses, but then after that, the music industry was changing rapidly, and the wheels fell off pretty fast for the band beyond there. Some of us were talking in the chat earlier, me and Chad, neither of us even knew they made a third full-length album forever. I knew they had the 2 albums and that weird, goofy Torture Tactics EP, and then they just can't seem to disappear from the radar. But yeah, for a band that, as we were joking earlier, they might be like, in the big 6 of thrash, the big 9 of thrash. I don't know how far down the list you go to include them. But they still put out a gem of a record, and that really speaks volumes to the quality here. So good for them. 2 thumbs up.
I gotta say that third album, Nothing to Gain, I have never heard it.
I've never heard of it.
Came out, I've heard of it. I've just never. It's not easy to. I don't even know what label it came out on. Pony Cannon. I mean, that's just how bad things were changing. This came out October 21st, 1993.
So it probably didn't even have a U.S. release then.
No, it was Japanese. Pony Cannon.
Pony Canyon's Japan. Yep.
9 reviews, average 64%. So I've never heard it. Does the lineup change on it? Nope, it's the same lineup.
It's the same. That's interesting too. Yeah, the band lineup all through the original catalog is the same.
Yep. Yep. Anyway, judgment, final thoughts, TJ.
Like I said earlier, the record's mandatory. You can debate all along, where they belong. 88, tides were changing with a lot of things. Things were starting to shift. They came in on the back end, but this record is mandatory. It just is. There's no question about it. It's exceptional. Just absolutely killer thrash. I guess I give it, a 9 steaming microwavable White Castles.
Nice.
Jim.
I think if you have any interest in thrash metal at all beyond the big four, whose quality is lacking after the 80s, in my opinion, for the most part, with a notable exception of Rest in Peace, which came out in 1990. Then you have to have this. I'm with TJ 100%. If you're really into thrash, or if you even have a passing interest beyond the big four, this has to get in your collection if it's not already there. This is it's quintessential thrash. It's done right. It gets in and gets out. It's only 35 minutes long. It doesn't overstay its welcome. Frosty said it in the chat, leaves you wanting more. He's absolutely right. And you were rewarded on repeated listens, with just tiny bits of nuance. Don't get me wrong. This is raw and ferocious, first and foremost, 95%, but there's also a little bit there that kind of, you start to see tiny little moments of, brilliance and uniqueness, in the delivery of these riffs, and ultimately, Sean is going to stick in your mind. Love and hate him. His lyrics are memorable. His delivery is memorable. He one thing you can say about him, he enunciates. You can understand what he's saying, and you will find yourself singing these crazy lyrics, and it's just it's awesome and it's fun, and if that isn't what thrash is, then I don't know what it is. So yeah, this is a 10 out of 10 for me. It has been since day one, and it always will be. This is one of my favorite thrash metal albums of all time. So really happy and excited that we got to talk about it tonight.
Absolutely. Good pick. One thing to be noted is 1988, someone mentioned Leprosy was out around the same time. The changing of the guard was starting to be known. And having said that, Alan said he always kind of saw them as second tier thrash, which second tier thrash is still really killer thrash. It's when it starts to be third and fourth tier where you start to get into the Defiances and the Power Mad and the Gothic Slam. Crappy, some bands are good, some bands are crappy, but considering what was going on, and I'm sure 1988, I'm sure there was some Testament songs on Headbangers Ball, Slayer, Metallica, all that stuff was happening. This album charted at 154 on the US Billboard 200.
Yep.
So for a second tier thrash band, granted they're on Mechanic, which didn't sign. I mean, they had Voivod for an album. They had they put out Nothing Face.
Yeah, but Mechanics was like a subsidiary of a much bigger.
Yeah,
label.
but like TJ said, MCA. Yep.
Yeah.
MCA.
Okay. Couldn't remember which one.
They got a push, and the ferocity of their live shows propelled them to public adoration. The next album they would, World. I couldn't turn on Headbangers Ball for a while without seeing World in a World video, which what a killer song, man. What a crushing killer song.
And you'll fear this fucking.
Yeah. Yep. It's absolutely, this is a great record. 9 out of 10 for me all day. And, I have no problem with second tier thrash and even some third and fourth tier. Some of it I appreciate as well, but, this sits right up there with the Holy Terrors of the world, the Forbiddens of the world. All that stuff deserves its place and earned its place, and definitely love it. And yeah, great pick, Jim. Awesome. But since Kellen's not here to pick, it is back to TJ. Here we go.
So I figured out my formula now. So we go from disappointment to maybe not as disappointing. So we'll see how that goes, but I think we'll be all right with this one.
The Def haven't worked out. The Def haven't worked out better than I thought it was gonna. I was ready to nail your nuts to the wall, but no, it was decent.
Like I always say, bring the hate. I don't care. Send all your hate mail to @MartyRickinen@AOL.com. It's
Marty like Death Heaven. It was a Christmas miracle.
That's right, Tim. It's my turn again. So prepare yourself.
Oh, just wait till my pick, Tim. I'm ready for all the
my next
gonna hate what I picked.
Now this one, I think everybody's gonna be good with this one. It's Atrocity. Todesen Zucht or Longing for Death. I have.
That's a great record.
It is a great record, and but I think there's plenty here to discuss once you move past this.
That's their best album. It is.
Well,
100%.
But I think there's plenty to talk about here, and I felt like this is so. So if this gives you any indication of where we're going to be, so the next time I pick, it's going to happen.
It's going to suck.
Oh no, it's going to be good. It's going to be super good.
Well, there it is. Excellent. And thank you everyone again for joining us. Check out Iwas Recordings. Got a new tape in his distro to be sold. Check out Let's Talk Metal. Alan today put up his final year-end list, added a bunch of other stuff that he did not discuss in the year-end that we did. TJ, just if you got any great gravy recipes, send his way. Me, I'm just here. And check out The Glorious Dead. And thank you one and all for the turnout on that horrendously long year-end list we did. I didn't think
we didn't think
we thought it was going to go super quick, but everybody had a lot to say, which was cool. And the fact that there were so many people in the chat and y'all stuck into the end, which, cheers. That's a testament to the channel's growth and the fan base we have. So we appreciate all of you. Thank you for that. A lot of fun, a lot of stuff going on. New year. We'll be back next in Friday. We got Mark Riddick and Lee. God, I can never remember Lee's name. Do you remember his last name?
Guin art. I'm not pronouncing it right, but it's
Yeah.
like Guin art.
Nailed it.
Well, both these gentlemen are responsible for the Heavy Art Talk YouTube channel, which is a incredibly unique YouTube channel that deals with metal artists. It's a very cool channel. They do some cool shit. But yep, those guys are going to be on Friday. We're going to have a new t-shirt announcement that's coming as well. So lots and lots and lots to look forward to. We'll see you Friday. Jim, TJ, Alan, you all are the best. And y'all have a great night. Happy New Year. Cheers.